back-to-back champions of Europe for Barcelona with the win over Lyon in the Champions League final. Let's go ahead and get down and talk about this match, though, because the fact that Barcelona has been so dominant this season, having the quadruple in the entire year has been so impressive, but then specifically in this match, how did they get it done, Lisa?
This was so impressive for Barcelona. They did it by having a complete game plan, understanding defensively they needed to stay compact. They couldn't let Lyon get in behind and create those chances. Defensively, this was one of the best games we've seen from Barcelona. They also did a really good job of keeping possession and not making it predictable in their attack, how they wanted to get in behind, being really patient too, because at halftime it was scoreless still between these two sides, and that could have ruffled either side, right, as to why chances hadn't been able to find the back of the net. But the long game paid off for Barcelona, and well-deserved for them, for sure.
You know what was the telltale sign to me of the Barca were going to win? Is they let Graham Hansen start to cook in the first few minutes. She had this brilliant touch past Baca, and I think that kind of set the tone that, okay, they're coming out on the front foot. And in my opinion, Barcelona had momentum the entire match. Lyon couldn't string together 5-6 passes to get out of their own half a lot of the time, and they had these quick regains and were attacking right away. They were patient when they needed to be. I just think they had the game in their back pocket. They played a full 90 minutes, whereas Lyon had moments of brilliance, but it wasn't enough to actually put anything away. And this was so deserved for Barcelona. I just think they were the better team on the day, and it showed in how they played and in the result, and congrats.
I think Lyon started the match really well. Honestly, the first 5-10 minutes, I was like, okay, Lyon.
They came out hard.
They came out really hard. They were able to prod and prod at Barcelona's back line, but it was the calmness from Barcelona, the maturity of this team that has changed from 2 years ago when we saw them play this Lyon side, and it was a very different outcome. They weren't going to be disrupted by anything Lyon was doing, and said, okay, if Lyon wants to pass and string together some passes and build out, we're just going to put higher pressure on them and make sure that our counter press measures are more organized than Lyon's building measures. And after 10-15 minutes of the first half, I was like, okay, there goes Barcelona.
Barcelona looked incredibly disciplined in every length of the field.
You know, one of the things that kind of stood out to me was the fact that there was so much space. When you talk about that counter press possibility when Barcelona got the ball, there was so much room for them to go, and there wasn't enough numbers in the first half, and that's something that we saw change in the second half, right? Barcelona would win the ball back, and then there was so much space to eat up. Caroline Graham-Hansen would cover a lot of space, but then there'd only be 1-2 numbers in the box for Barcelona, and I thought, this is troublesome because they're not going to be able to get to goal. Second half, some changes were made there, Lisa.
They were. Barcelona did a better job of using their expansive shape to get really wide and force Lyon to run and to cover defensively. By the 55th, 60th minute, Lyon looked tired from running and having to chase, which Barcelona is used to doing that to their opposition. Lyon didn't prepare for that as well as they should have, because ultimately when the goal came, it's because Bonmati was able to just go through the middle, and defensively, Lyon couldn't keep up with all the players that were going forward for Barcelona and the movement and how really wide and expansive the shape was for Barcelona.
No, I completely agree. And Barcelona, the way that they play, God, we've talked a lot about how defending sucks. When you're defending for 90 minutes, you're exhausted. When you finally get the ball, you have no energy to go forward. Lyon, you're right, came out hard, but I think they lost it. As soon as they were having to chase Barcelona, how quickly they pass the ball, how specific they are, which foot it's going to, where their constant movements are on the flanks. It just caused chaos for Lyon, and they weren't able to come back from it. And Barcelona just over and over again with that attack. You can't. How do you stop it after like 20 times?
It was trouble for Lyon as soon as Melchi Duornay, the player you want highest up the pitch, or at least checking back into that half space, was all the way back in line with your sixes and almost your center backs. That's when I was like, oh gosh, they've just put this Lyon side defensively into a blender and spun them all out.
Well, that was a big thing, was I kept saying, get the ball to Melchi Duornay. I think there was multiple opportunities when they could have played her early and let her do her magic, and they didn't. And I was thinking, that's Lyon's only out in this moment right now because she's so skilled and they weren't giving it to her early enough. One of the things I want to go ahead and give credit to, Barcelona, this match is being played in Bilbao, in Spain. The entire crowd of 50,000 plus people was Barcelona's fans. I mean, we saw jerseys all over the place, and I think it's worthy of mentioning that that is an advantage for Barcelona. Lyon men played on the same day in the French final as the fact that Barcelona women are playing the biggest game in Europe. in the Champions League final at the same time. So a lot of those supporters that maybe cross both lines are going to be at the men's game or were not there. It was full of Barcelona fans, and that does have an impact. You know, Darian, you've played in stadiums, and obviously the fan base kind of impacts how the game energy is swaying from time to time when Barcelona gets their chances and they're getting cheered on, when Lyon gets booed in certain situations.
Oh, yeah.
How do you think that played out for Lyon?
I mean, it's tough when you're how many tickets are sold? 50,000 something people were there. I think it's insane when you go into that environment and you hear everybody cheering against you, kind of wishing your downfall. You're not touching the ball, which is more of an effect. You have no possession. You're just kind of constantly defending, having to shake your shoulders, and you hear the crowd roaring against you. It's tough. That's a huge factor when you go into that. And if you don't use it as motivation to shut the crowd up, and it kind of starts to overwhelm you with how loud they're being in support of your downfall, it's mentally really tough to overcome.
And as the game runs away from you, if you're Lyon in that moment, you then also can't hear your teammates on either side of you or your coach, because this crowd is so loud. Even like tough crunching tackles, you could hear the Barca fans just going crazy. And then as soon as Bonmati got that first goal, Lyon looked even more deflated than they had.
The body language was
the first 60
tough.
minutes.
We talk about body language. We talk about Lyon being at a little bit of a disadvantage here just in terms of the stadium aspect. That's not taking away from Barcelona and everything that they have accomplished, but just talking about this 8-time champion in the Lyon's women's side, is this a sign that their dominance is starting to kind of get away from them? Or, you know, obviously we talk about it all the time, that the women's game is getting more competitive all over the place, and a dominance like that is not going to be seen again.
I think for sure that Lyon has been the top dog for so long, but the rest of the world is catching up. I mean, Barcelona has been top competitors in their domestic leagues, but now in Champions League as well. I don't want there to just be one team at the top. I don't even want there to be 2 or 3. I want there to be competition between 5, 6, 7 teams across Europe.
Yeah, I completely agree. Everyone is catching up. The league is all these teams are getting more competitive. You're seeing players go from team to team, go to different leagues, which is amazing. And then you're seeing a lot more diversity in the Champions League, players competing. I just think everyone's catching up. It's not just Lyon anymore where all of these international players want to go play. You're seeing them go to Barca, to Wolfsburg, to Roma, to these teams where you're not really expecting them to go super far in Champions League or put up that much of a fight. And it finally is happening. But women's game is taking off. We talk about this at length.
We can't overlook at least the fact that Jonathan Herrera is leaving Barcelona as well.
Of course.
And we saw it with Chelsea in the Super League with Emma Hayes saying goodbye at the end of this season, how the players rallied around her to get one last trophy for her. And I firmly believe that the players wanted this as much for themselves as they did as a sending off for Jonathan Herrera, to get that quadruple, to win Champions League over Lyon, something that's never happened before for Barcelona. And then the crowd on your sides. It was the perfect storm of success for Barca.
Well, you're mentioning that, but there is a reported Sonia Bonpastor also leaving Lyon. They didn't do that for her quite a bit there.
Reported. I don't know yet.